Sleeper must awake.
Yep, magic again. No worries. It's still a show about the mystic path or mysticism. I don't like isms, but anyways, you know what I mean. Yeah, so second magician in a row. So out of 4 interviews so far, we have 2 magicians, but actually mostly 2 mystics. And I'm gonna get right back to that. First of all, I just want to say a quick word about Denis himself, today's guest. What a great being! Very smart, very articulate. He was very calm, very chill, very present and generous of his time, knowledge. Just such a pleasure, and I feel honored and very, very fortunate that he accepted the invitation. Yeah, so second magician in a row. 2 very different discussions. I mean, different from the one I've had with the also very friendly and luminous Douglas Batchelor. And I have to say, and I hope this doesn't sound bad in any way to magic practitioners out there, but I've been twice surprised. I guess as I say in the interview, a kind of a spectator of the magical landscape, more than a practitioner. I guess I thought that magic was kind of a whole bunch of ways, of weird and cool ways to interact with concrete reality, which subsequently could open one up to the numinous and, like mind or consciousness expansion, or whatever you want to call it that. But at the basis, it was more about manifesting. At least that's what I thought. And I realize now, by talking with 2 magicians in a row, that in fact serious magical practices are actually focused on revelation in the same way that any other spiritual practice could be. And I think the proof of that in today's interview is that, well, maybe you've noticed that a question often comes up that I can't help but ask my guests, is about a question about do entities or disincarnate entities have free will? And I'm always half expecting, like magicians to say, or maybe hoping, secretly hoping that magicians will say, oh yeah, they do have free will, and they're like you and me, and they have their preferences, and then they change their minds, and they have personalities and stuff like that. And although I'm sure some magicians would say that, we always, with those 2 guests, we've ended on, what is free will, and are we in fact separate from the entities themselves, and maybe they're part of us, but also maybe we're part of them. So, at one point I said in the interview that maybe a magician's answer to the question of the will of entities would be different from the answer of a Taoist priest. And he said, maybe not. And I said, you're right, I take that back. And, well, the proof that I was wrong about that is that Denis gave a very similar answer to the question as Ian Duncan, whom I interviewed in episode 3, who is a Taoist priest. So, yeah, the search keeps going, and the yeah, I mean, the common ground between all those interviews is fascinating for me to discover, and maybe actually I'm just real good at sniffing out mystics out of the different packs out there. So yeah. So, anyways, great interview today. I'm rambling and. I have convoluted ways of asking questions, and I'm working on that. But still a very good discussion, mainly because of Denis' great knowledge and insight. All right, so just some quick notes before we start. Just a little reminder that I hate saying that, but if you're watching this or listening on YouTube, please subscribe. I am at 13 subscribers right now, and that makes no sense. I mean, not because I'm so great, but the guests I've had so far, they deserve more than 13 subscribers. So so yeah, I hate those formulaic ways of saying things, but subscribe and like whatever your platform you're listening to this on. Subscribe. That would be very cool. Also, check out the Patreon. More and more stuff going on there. And you can actually try it for 7 days. So just remember that that's an option. Also, just quick announce that next week's interview will be with author, artist, and perennialist James Tunney. If you're a fan of New Thinking Aloud with Jeffrey Mishlove, you probably will have heard of him. And by the way, the interview is already recorded and already on Patreon. So it's going to come out officially on all platforms on December 14th. But it's already in its very raw form available on Patreon. So check that out. All right. So without further ado, for some reason I have trouble pronouncing that. Here's a quick bio of today's guest. So, Denis Poisson is the host of the very popular Foolish Fish YouTube channel, which content revolves around reviews and previews of books for the modern practicing esotericist and occultist, but also features short lessons designed to simplify esoteric concepts, introducing new ideas and maps of the spiritual experience. Also, having studied the main world religions, Denis at one point embarked on a career as a teacher of religion studies in the southeast of England, where he was employed as a world religions specialist. After 10 years, he relocated with his family to central Poland, where a career change freed up enough spare time and resources to start up the YouTube channel. Additionally, he maintains the enormously successful Foolish Fish Discord chat server with a group of dedicated admins. Denis Poisson's core passion is helping others see past the maps and the words and rules and the prescriptions and apprehend firsthand the divine ground of which we are both a part and the whole. Great bio for a great guy. I hope you enjoy this discussion. portal has opened. Welcome. I'm going to start by bragging a little. I'm probably one of the rare podcasters who can actually pronounce your name correctly.
Yes, right.
Not going like Denis Poisson or Poisson. I can say bienvenue, Denis Poisson.
Merci. Thank you. It's an honor.
No
Thank
worries.
you.
We're not going to do this and we're going to stick to English still.
It'll definitely be easy for
thank
me.
you.
I haven't used French in quite a while, yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah, I wasn't sure
Yeah.
How present French was in your life.
No, I'm based in Poland. We don't speak much French here.
I see. Yeah. Well, I've as we were saying before starting the interview, I'm very, very grateful for you to be here today. I think, there's many reasons why I wanted to reach to you. Well, I've been following your work for many years. I'm unfortunately not as much of a bibliophile as you are. This might be for financial reasons.
That's fair enough. Yes.
But I mean, all those the content that you put about your personal philosophy and your practice has always been part intriguing and very enticing to me, but also I recognize myself at a more basic level, even though I'm not a magic practitioner. I can recognize myself in a lot of what you're saying and what you're expressing. And so there's three things that I can say that kind of pushed me to, okay, I have to reach that guy. First of all, one of the videos that I watched, I think the one it's probably one of your most popular ones. What is magic, probably, or something?
Okay.
Do you have one like?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
And there's a quote that's from you, and it's magic is the study of the universe, and then the practical use of that knowledge. And to me, it's basically mysticism in a nutshell. And this has been. I could have replaced magic for mysticism, and for me, it just applied perfectly. And then the second quote from you was, "Who needs God when you got a Yamaha CS80?"
That wasn't facetious at all.
No, you wouldn't have
but
used that specific a term. So
that's right.
So I'm guessing both musicians also. So I thought, I probably have some atome crochu, can say that in French. In English, I don't know how it works.
Yes, some common ground, maybe. Yes.
So, but more seriously, and I'm gonna let you speak in a short while. Don't worry. What really pushed me to finally do the move is your, I believe, not your latest video, but the one before. The one, I have the title. Yeah, The Great Work, Alchemy's Magnum Opus and the Divine Purpose. And especially because you addressed the concept of the holy guardian angel from a thelemic maybe standpoint. You're going to be you can clarify that for us afterwards, but and I don't necessarily want to get into that right now, because I want to go in deep. Okay.
Sure.
So
okay.
There's another thing that I thought was really interesting with, because right before you, my latest interview was with Douglas Batchelor, who you may know of the What Magic Is This podcast.
Yes.
And we did talk about this concept of the holy guardian angel, which is a concept I had never really heard of. And apparently, I'm not. I think it's fair to say that he has a different view of this concept than you. And I don't want to put words in
Sure.
his mouth. People can listen by themselves. But there's another thing that's really interesting, and then I'm gonna let you speak. You mentioned also in another video of yours um, that you qualify yourself as, if I'm not mistaken, as a perennialist, and that's very interesting to me because the next guest that I'm going to have, which I'm not going to reveal who it is for now, also describes themselves as a perennialist, and that's a concept that's quite new for me too. So to start with, so that people
So much to
know
unpack
you,
there. Yes.
I just want to set the basis, and and I also I keep saying that I'm still very new at this, so maybe
Fair enough. Of
maybe
course,
it's crap,
of course.
but I don't think we'll have fun eventually.
I
For
think
sure.
yes. There's some good
right.
stuff already. Yes.
Cool. All right, so perennialism. What is it? Well, just basically, what is it to you? And but also, how does it? How should I say? How does it shape you as a magician? If you can start with just a very quick, maybe personal definition of what it is, and yeah, I'm curious to see how all this comes together, because a perennialist is not necessarily a magician, I guess.
Not necessarily.
Is
Okay.
that fair to say?
There's I made a whole video on the problem with my religion, right? And that's really where I went into a little bit of depth in around the word perennialism, because it's a problematic word. It actually is. At the time when I was starting to discover the realms beyond the material realm, so we're talking when I was around 19, I instinctively worked out that this stuff, all of this mystical stuff, let's call it mystical stuff, defies boundaries. It is applicable to humanity as a whole, and I would even go as far as to say that it's applicable to all sentient consciousness. And that's what interested me. I was interested in the universally applicable. Now, the universally applicable concepts that are explored by many religions are not the only things that those religions explore, right? So each religion, each tradition explores maybe an aspect of the universal, and it also has very specific things for and by the people that it is for and by, and those things are going to be applicable probably at a particular place, at a particular time, and they won't be universally applicable, but they're important as a unifying structural way of being and philosophy for going ahead in life. That all of that is very interesting to me, but it wasn't necessarily essential for me. And as much as I did find myself being fascinated, by the different traditions that I started to study after I realized that at least one of the religions that I had particular ideas about, Christianity, was the first one that I studied, right? And I realized that my ideas about what it was, based on popular culture, based on the organizations that claim to represent Christianity, based on society in general, was very different from what I was finding written at least in the New Testament. I was interested in the difference between the New Testament and the Old Testament as well. And I was finding in there stuff that was clearly of its time and of that particular group of people, and other stuff that was universally applicable. And that's universally applicable stuff was fascinating to me because it was still relevant to me today. And if I tried it out, and when I did try it out, it worked. It was mind blowing. And so I thought, well, if I mistook what Christianity was so badly, then maybe I should look into Islam next. And I did. And then I found very similarly, there are some things that were very useful for a group of people at a particular time. And there are other things within Islam which are universally applicable. And then I started looking into the groups of people who had really focused in on those universally applicable things. In Christianity, there was I started finding out about the Gnostics, and in Islam, I started finding out about the Sufis, and then I looked into Buddhism and found many similar things, and Taoism, and so on and so forth. And then I studied to become a teacher of religious studies, and I studied Judaism, and I studied anyway a number of other religions. And my interest was in the universal, and so I couldn't really call myself one thing or another. I couldn't say that I was a Christian. I couldn't say, because certainly other Christians would disagree very strongly that I was a Christian. I couldn't call myself, Muslim simply means surrendered, right? I mean, many people translate it as submitted, but I think the word submission is a mistranslation. I think surrender is a much better translation for what that word means, in my opinion, right? I mean, how can I have any claim on this? Because I can't call myself a Muslim because, as I say, the word Muslim means something very particular, and I can't call myself a Buddhist because, I don't follow certain aspects of Buddhism as well. So what could I call myself? And I found I'd been reading Aldous Huxley. I'd been reading his, A Brave New World. And I found that I really, really enjoyed that. And I started looking into a bit more of his work. And I found The Perennial Philosophy. And I've got this first edition over here, just behind me on my favorite shelf. There we go, The Perennial Philosophy. And I started reading this, and I was like, yes, all of this stuff that's in this book, this is the essential stuff that is found in Essential. This is the universally applicable stuff. And this is actually a problem, right? This word essential, because I'll get into it. Anyway, I thought, okay, this is a label, and I really hate labels, but people seem to like labels and seem to not like people who don't have a label. So, all right, fine, I'll use this label, like perennialism, to describe what I was, somebody who was interested in the universally applicable spiritual truths that are discoverable in at least the major world traditions, and that are common to the major world traditions. Then I started finding out about some of the pretty nasty people who had also used the term perennialism to completely, really misrepresent the point, right? The point of universality. What they were suggesting was that, yes, there is only one tradition, and that is Christianity. And all of the traditions that came before Christianity were really proto-Christianities. And all the religions that existed at the same time and after Christianity, they were just takes on Christianity, but really it's all Christianity. That's a very different message from there is a central message to all religions. And, you know, it's yeah. So those people who then started to call themselves perennialists, and then also traditionalist was another misappropriated word that originally was supposed to mean, you know, that there is like a fundamental tradition that you can thread through all of the world traditions. But again, you know, they also appropriated this word to say, no, there is one tradition and it is Christianity. You know, it's and they used this kind of perverted philosophy to then say, like the Jewish people, they've got, for example, they've got Kabbalah, but you know, it's the wrong form because it's not the Christian form. So we'll just take a Kabbalah because we're Christians and we're owed everything, and we'll use it to suppress the Jewish people. And so just really, really horrible stuff. So do I still call myself a perennialist? Well, I want to reclaim this word, which is really the only label that I'm not even comfortable using it because it means other things now. You know, it's
Exactly.
so that's a tough one. That's a tough one. But hopefully, what I've just talked about gives you an idea of what I mean by the word perennialist when I say that I'm a perennialist. Yeah, I'm interested in the deeper stuff.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to start with that, because I often find that, for many words, people, they don't really argue. People. Okay, the way I'd put it is a word is basically it's kind of a container for meaning, and people argue of what should be put into that container. So instead of just saying, well, maybe we could have two containers,
Right.
no problem. It's just, no, that's my word.
Yes.
So that's why personally I don't hold too tightly to the words themselves, and but such a term seemed significant enough to be not explained, but I guess to get your
unpacked.
feel. And what I get, the feel I get from what you're saying is that to tie all this back to magic, to actually starting to practice magic, which is something we'll talk about it later, maybe.
Sure.
It feels, but it feels to me like magic, in a way, can be a manner of appropriating all this perennialism and or mysticism, call it what you will, and put it in actual action, and also in a very hands-on approach, which to me is interesting because it's funny. I'm uneducated. I'm self-educated. I'm not formally educated, that's for sure. And I'm a DIY guy. I don't know what planetary archetype fits that the best.
Sure.
But and for me, I think, looking back, the time I spent in punk and grunge bands informed my spirituality way more than any book that I read before. And I recognize that the spirit of DIY and grunge and punk in mysticism the in my view the truest sense, so. And also, like, when I listen to you speak about magic, um, you seem to put a point to make it very important for people to start from their own experience, to try something. And even though the grimoire says that's not how you do it, well, you try, I don't know, you know better than me, maybe try the grimoire first, but then if it doesn't work, figure out your own way and try to adapt the. So how would you say that in magic, in a practice in general, how important is it to create or adapt one's own rituals, um, and if so, if it's important, which I guess you will say that it can be important. What would you say is the most important thing to be mindful of when kind of appropriating the rituals for yourself and your own practice?
It's a great question. I think you'll be hard pressed to find a magic practitioner who doesn't believe that it's a good idea to have. Maybe you won't be so hard pressed, but anyway, most of the magic practitioners that I know and respect, there we go, will probably agree that it's a good idea to have followed an established practice for a good amount of time before inventing your own. And this is because it'll give you an idea of what's supposed to happen. And if you're then if you're, I think it's like pretty much any skill. If you're setting out to become a cinematographer, right? Somebody who makes who holds a camera on a film set, and you just turn up on day one, having never had any training, you're unlikely to produce something of any worth. And that's not because you're not capable of creating something from scratch. It's just that creating something from scratch is going to take you a long time, and day one is certainly not going to be your best work. And if you've got no idea what has been done before, you'll spend ages reinventing the wheel, and you might not know something that, like a trick that is kind of essential, that everyone is doing, and that is solving all the problems that you're encountering on day one because you're trying to work it out. Sure, you might find that the end result in 50 years' time of figuring it all out on your own is quite original, right? You won't be influenced by any other creator before you, but you'll also probably not be making what is commonly recognized as movies. So in the same way, in magic, like you can start off on your own going, okay, what do I think magic should be? And like imagining your own thing and working out that, okay, what I tried didn't work. Let's see what else I can do. Yeah, it still didn't work. Okay, let's keep going. It still doesn't work. Well, a really nice thing to do is to follow a system that already exists for a time, right? For as long as it takes you to feel like you are at least good at this system, right? But then once you are, let's say, good at this system, I think it's important to recognize that this system was created by maybe a person, maybe a group of people, and individuals are unique, and you are unique, and maybe some of the details are not right for you, and you can intuitively sense that, okay, I can see what this is doing, but I can also see that in my case this other thing would work much better, right? So then, yeah, it's about well, then you might go and choose another direction and choose another path, and many people do,
Yeah.
right? They go, oh no, I'm done with whatever Wicca. I'm going to go full on in the Tibetan Buddhist direction now, right? And they do, and they pour 10 years into that, and they realize, oh, there's a lot of stuff that I was doing in the Wicca Lodge that are completely applicable here. I can see that, yeah, all right. So this particular aspect is done much more skillfully, but I need to understand this particular Tibetan way of thinking about it. I wonder, what would be the best way for me? So then you can start making your own path. I have to say that I came to magic as a way of, and this is maybe going away a little bit from your question, Dominic. I hope you don't
Go
mind.
ahead. Go ahead.
But I think it's worth
Sure.
mentioning that I came to magic as a way of formalizing and verbalizing the spiritual experiences that I was having. As you know, it's very difficult to put into words a numinous experience, right? You'll have an experience of something bigger than you, something beyond what the usual day-to-day experience. And well, since language was really created to describe selling and buying cattle, it's not really appropriate. Our human language is not appropriate for talking about these experiences beyond the day to day, especially since we rely for language to work. We rely on the person you're talking to have had a similar experience to yours.
Exactly.
And so you can talk about it. If I talk about a polar bear, I don't know if you've ever met a polar bear. I'm expecting not, unless it's in a zoo. But we've both seen polar bears on TV at least. And when I say polar bear, I've got the same thing in my head as you do. But when I say the holy guardian angel, suddenly are we talking about the holy guardian angel as he described it, like as this current guy who's really, really heavy on tradition is describing it, or as this guy who doesn't really care about tradition is describing? Like, what are you really saying here, right? Because we can't check that we're talking about the same experience, right? Nevertheless, I got into magic for searching for a common language. That's really what I was looking for, and in the process, I discovered that actually magic is a very rich, very diverse, very large, very very complex, very spread over a wide variety of areas and topics, all of which I've found fascinating, not all of which relate to the numinous, by the way. And it's been fascinating to me to find out about about more ground-based magics, and about just different philosophies altogether that are actually common in many forms of magic, and so on and so forth. So there we go. that kind of went off on a tangent. Sorry there, Dominic.
Please, I mean, that's it's all related anyways, and to me it's the more important thing. I was gonna say in an interview, but in life in general, is to connect with that flow where there's no really any questions on
Sure.
what you should do or shouldn't do. So
Right.
I think we're still in the flow of this
Okay.
conversation. Let's go with it.
To come back
No
to your
worries.
question, however, you were asking
Yep.
why it's important to bring in your own flavor, and
Mm.
and actually, you started the question by giving an example of taking a grimoire doesn't quite work, so you might alter certain things.
Mm.
There was this listen, a podcast that I heard like 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 6 years ago now. And for the life of me, I can't remember who it was on this podcast. I've been putting out feelers. I think it's you. Did you say a thing like this? And everyone keeps answering. I have no idea what you're talking about. Sounds like it could or may not have been me. Sorry. So I just can't work out which podcast it was, and I can't work out who was the guest. But they were saying this.
Mhm.
They were saying when you are following instructions for calling out to a spirit, it's important, obviously, to know what the tradition is, what the generally accepted methods are, right? Because that'll be good stuff. But it's also important not to think of it as a recipe for the following reasons. It's very much like taking someone out on a date. And I love this analogy. You take someone out on a date, you pick certain clothes, you pick maybe a particular aftershave or whatever. You pick a restaurant, like a really nice restaurant, and you get to the restaurant and the date goes beautifully. The food is delicious. You have a really nice, interesting, engaging conversation, and you're unavoidably attracted to each other. Like you get closer over the delicious food and drink and conversation, and it's just wonderful. And you go home maybe to one of your apartments, and there's a happy ending, right? And you think, well, great, that's my my recipe then, right? And then
Yeah.
you're right. If you were to repeat that like 2 days later, you turn up with the same clothes at the same restaurant, and like, your friend's going to be like, that's weird. And then you like force the conversation into the same topics and make sure that you use the same words. And like, that's not a guarantee of an exchange. It's not a guarantee of chemistry. It's not a guarantee of understanding of that relationship magic happening. And talking to spirits is very much like that. So it's a good idea to know that this particular spirit doesn't like the smell of roses, right? It's a good idea to know that this spirit particularly likes, I don't know, mint, or the color red, or whatever, right? So you can you can then avoid or make sure that you bring these things, right? But it's one thing to know their preferences and to know what has worked in the past for other practitioners and so on, and it's quite another to obsessively follow a recipe, right? Because ultimately it's a relationship that you're building. Anyway, so that's my reason for remembering that not to be following to the letter, to use some of the things that you can see have worked, and to ensure that you have at least the basic ingredients, but it's important that it is you coming in front of these spirits, and not just like a robot saying the right words that will make the thing happen, right? Yeah, that's my perspective. Many people disagree with me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd imagine so. I mean, well, I've been a spectator of the magic scene
Mm, mm,
for
mm,
some
mm,
years now, and I know
mm.
that there's not to get into that though, but there's a divide between people who say, well, whether you believe it or not, whatever you're gonna like, if you do whatever's written on there in that very old book, it's gonna
Yeah.
work. You don't have to believe. You don't have to be invested in any way. It's gonna work. And others say, well, no, you have to. So, but all this is it's interesting because well, the thing is, so far all the conversations I've had, they all come to one thing, one basic
Yes.
thing, very fundamental thing is, and it's this notion of will.
Mm,
And
mm.
I hope that for my um well, for my listeners, if I really have them at this point, eventually I will have them. So I hope I'm not already bugging them with this notion. But like for me, this notion, the idea of will, the concept of will, is so fundamental for not only to the way we interact uh, in the world, with the world, or at least that we believe that we interact with the world, but also it's important to know what has will over us,
Mm,
and so a
mm.
question that has come back for many times, and I probably won't get the same answer from you than from a Taoist priest, you know
You
but
never know.
well, yeah, actually, yeah, I take that back. It depends on the magician and the priest.
Yes.
um but so in your personal experience,
Mm.
do are entities self-willed? Like, I should say this quickly, because I'm always I always start with my uh, experience, and
Mm.
in my experience, I can't, for at least for now, claim without a doubt, without any doubt, that yes, there are entities, and well, this I could say without a doubt, I think, uh, but that they have an independent will similar to ours, um, uh, as we not everyone changes in their lives, like a lot of people just feels like they're just shot out of a gun at birth, and they just go all the way to the end, not asking any questions, and like, yeah, there
Yeah.
you go, the you know
The life unexamined.
uh,
Yes.
exactly. But even those people, I mean, something could happen to them that makes them start taking charge of their life,
Hmm.
and so, but how I've experienced entities, or even I could say the gods,
Yes.
it's very straightforward, and like it feels to me like the gods don't change their mind, like it's and I just want to make clear that my experience is very limited, so that's why I'm interested in speaking with people like you. So, but, and I was really thinking about that question again because I was sure it would come back today. And I thought, like, I'm gonna have to put a twist on it this time, to keep it interesting.
Mm.
So, do you think the gods or other entities have an effect on our lives, even outside of magic functioning, and maybe without us knowing? Because it feels like all this invocation thing and this banishing thing, it feels like you're kind of controlling this flow of different energies. But like my upstairs neighbor could decide to just like break down my door with an axe, and I didn't ask for anything, like so is that yeah, does that make sense? Is that a question?
I think so. Maybe we'll approach it little by little, and I'll ask you for confirmation for the next part.
Sure.
Let me see. I think it might be worth starting off with the point that the gods don't change their minds, and I think that is true and false in from different perspectives. The gods don't change their minds. Let's start off maybe with the PGM, the Greco-Egyptian magical papyri, which are certainly one of the oldest links that we have to the magic that was being practiced 1,600 to 2,000 years ago. That the many of the spells in those papyri were precisely to get the gods to change their minds. They believed that the ancient Greeks believed that to attract the attention of the gods was a terrible idea. The majority of the ancient Greeks would actually spend their lives trying to avoid the attention of the gods, right? And they believed that once you'd attracted the attentions of the gods, then that was bad news for you, because then they would take interest in what was going on in your lives, and they like to toy with humans, and right. But then there were sorcerers who understood this, but who also believed that they had the technologies, the spiritual and magical technologies, to force the gods to do their will, and this is why a lot of the magic that's in the PGM is completely unacceptable to most modern minds. It's like you can't speak that way to a god. Like, a lot of it is. I mean, it's insidious. It's like, okay, you say everything that you know about the god to really get the god's attention. Like you say all the god's names, well known and secret, and then you say, okay, I also know that you did this and you did that and you did this and you did this, and so this is all part of the invocation, right? Or the evocation, excuse me, right? So you're calling the god, and you're basically saying, hey, I know you. I do know you. I know your name. I know what you've done. I know where you are. I know where you were born. I know who your parents are. Oh, and by the way, I also know who your children are, and I'll make sure that they suffer if you don't do what I asked me to do, or what I asked you to do. So it's really like horrible, horrible stuff, right? But this was the kind of thing that they were doing. So I'm not sure I can follow you with the gods don't change their minds, because actually this was commonplace. This kind of magic was fully condemned, but and feared. But nevertheless, it was stuff that worked. So that's maybe a preface. Then let's come back to the core of your question, which was. Well, maybe you could restate the core of your question, Dominic.
Yep, absolutely. Because basically, I'm curious about how the will of the gods, or I'm saying the gods, but I mean
Just
any
yes,
disincarnate entities. How does it work, and how does it differ from us,
yes,
from ours?
and so there is. Thank you. And so there is clearly a way of having an effect upon the gods in the same way as the gods have an effect upon us. But
Hmm.
and gods and entities, by the way, right? Any disincarnate entity, exactly. I guess the core of the question is, what is a consciousness, right? And
Yeah.
I can go into what I think a consciousness is, and
Hmm.
it may be of interest, right? Because, like, what do I know? Of course, but this is my best guess. I believe that consciousness arises in places where enough information is stored. I believe that information can be stored, inside a living body.
Hmm.
DNA is the most dense information that is known to mankind.
Hmm.
And I believe, okay, maybe going back even further to the really the core, I am at the core. I am essentially an idealist in the philosophical sense of the word,
Hmm.
as opposed to a realist. So realism in philosophy is when you believe that there is matter and consciousness arises out of matter. I am an idealist, which is the concept that the universe is an idea. So the universe is mind. Mind is
Hmm.
the fundamental building block of the universe. It's mind, not matter. And matter arises out of mind, not the contrary. Right. So this is,
Hmm.
I think it's very important to state that from the start, because most people are realists just by default without thinking about it. It's an assumption, right? There is
Hmm.
matter and mind arises out of matter. You put the matter in the right configuration and it creates consciousness, it creates mind. Well,
Yeah.
I believe that actually matter, yes, exists within mind, and matter works inside mind at large. Matter can work as an antenna for consciousness, as a receiver
Hmm.
of consciousness. And as I say, it works as a receiver for consciousness when there is enough information present, simply.
Hmm.
And therefore, your tarot deck, which is a full representation of all the possible experiences of the universe, right, in codified form, symbolic form, 78 cards, which divide everything in 78 cards, is
Hmm.
actually conscious, right? And so your copy of the Iliad, right, which again includes all of the possible things, all of the possible situations, all of the possible life experiences in single sentences, is conscious. And so when you do bibliomancy and
Hmm.
you're asking the Iliad a question, it can give you an answer because it's conscious, and
Hmm.
and consciousness can arise in a thought form, right? So thought forms are very popular since the Theosophic society misappropriated the
Oh.
idea of the tulpa. and completely
Oh, that's what happened. I didn't. I was.
mistook what that was
Okay.
supposed to be, and people ran with it, and it seemed to work. So yeah, cool, fine. Started making
Okay.
servitors and so on and so forth in chaos magic and so on.
Mhm.
You've got a thought form. It gets consciousness. It receives consciousness despite not having a material presence. It's got it is nevertheless conscious. So I really like Lon Milo Duquette's tagline for his book Low Magic. He says, "It's all in your mind. You just don't realize how big your mind is." And and people really attack him for that. He says they say, it's not all in your mind. I called a demon to physical presence, and it was there in the room with me. And my answer to that is, you didn't read the second part of the tagline. Like, you don't realize how big your mind is. It's all mind. It's all mind, and everything is within the mind, right? The great mind, including our idea of our local self, right? Our might call the lower self.
Yeah.
So for me, magic, for me, magic, as I've experienced it over the past decade or so, has been a realization of this lower self and the higher self. Of course, the higher you go, the more you get to the mind at large, to the all, right? All being one, right? And a lot of ceremonial magic, at least, being about the unification of all the levels of the self. Just simply that. Yeah. Hopefully that goes some way towards answering.
Well, I'm more interested, anyways, in kind of the meta answers to those questions, and I think you've answered it beautifully, because there's if we take it apart, there's much more information in what you said than just by analyzing it on an intellectual level. So it's all good. And also, you are we're still in the flow, because we're going to that thing which brought me to you. And we're at 52 minutes now, so I don't know how tight you are on your schedule.
I'm good.
Anyways.
I'm good. I've got nothing planned after this, apart from going to bed.
I don't want to make the show too long, but okay, cool. It's good to know that we're chill. We're chill.
Yeah.
All right, so because we're going back to what, as I said at the beginning, pushed me to reach out to you was that video about I'm sorry, I have it.
What is magic, right?
The great work. The great work.
Oh, for sure.
And the great work, and the especially this notion of the holy guardian angel. Because that's not only that was it flows very well from the last conversation I've had with my previous guest, but also, I've been very curious, and as you could see in that last question too, about if I'm speaking to my higher self, let's say, am I addressing and because it sounds even when I was listening to Douglas Batchelor, and when I listened to you talk about the holy guardian angel, maybe I'm wrong, but and you'll correct me if I am, but it feels like something. Yeah, I'll say it like that. It feels a bit like an outside entity. That's, like kind of like I've been interested I would say mostly in the last few years into the concept of the daimon, which I guess
Yes, yes, that
kind of
this
fits
fits. Yes.
together. Maybe it's the same thing, actually. I don't know.
Yes.
So,
In fact, Fratuaca wrote Holy Daemon precisely on this topic. Yes. Yeah, recommend it if you
okay.
don't know it. Yeah. Good stuff.
Well, that's and this. I can say that I feel like I have a daimon. Like he has a name. He has his symbols.
Yes.
He's kind of a jerk at times, but it's
Yes.
mostly funny because like I'm not bragging, but I got rid of a lot of pride and ego. So when you get tricked by a trickster,
Yes.
you can laugh about it, but still, and maybe he's gonna really get back at me for saying this, but I'm not sure 100% if it's an external entity or if it's really just a part of my psyche. Um, so, and okay, I'm gonna try to word this because I had like 3 questions that I after reading them I was like, oh, that's basically the same question. Okay. So I'm starting from like a non-dualist perspective. I sometimes call myself a recovering non-dualist.
Sure.
Because it pushed me into nihilism, and I had my experiences with that, and it was very painful. But now I'm back from those experiences, much happier than I was. But still, and it's interesting because in a video I've heard you say, I think I have a quote here, that early magic philosophies and theosophies are replications of Hindu non-dual tantra, which was very interesting
I
to
don't
me
know about
because
early, but certainly the 19th century. Yes. Yes.
Okay, maybe I didn't type it right. So to me, I will say that it's my non-dualist standpoint on life, or apprehension of life, that it's what keeps me from really getting into an actual magic practice, because it doesn't feel like there's specific things that I have to do, that I have to decide to do, and to put my will into, and to do the rituals, and read the books. I don't have this will that's strong enough for anything to push me to do all those things. Maybe it's just a matter of interest. I don't know, but also it's. I think it's interesting, and I'm going to get back to the holy guardian angel as quickly as
Sure.
I can. So for I can't say for me as a non-dualist, action and will is in a way problematic. Although I don't feel it as a problem really anymore, because I just do what feels right to do, But if I connect this to the holy guardian angel and the notion of the higher self, I can't reconcile it
Yes.
with my own experience, because and also I did where is it? It's an the 30-minute mind expansion exercise that you've done. I've done it
Right.
yesterday. I've been really invested in it. And it's all going to be in the show notes, by the way, for people who want to try it. And I strongly encourage people to do so.
I was actually about to bring that up, the 30-minute mind
Oh,
expansion.
amazing.
Yeah. Essential.
Because I get to that point where I feel like maybe I'm getting towards that higher self. And all the words, they just disappear. There's nothing. It's just life that's there.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So how can I decide anything based on that? You know, like,
Yes.
Okay, I've been going on long enough. So do you need me to kind of?
Oh, no. I've got so much to talk about.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry if it was a bit long.
No. Because it's fascinating stuff, isn't it? I mean, like, it's the most fascinating stuff. That 30-minute mind expansion video, which was basically a rip-off of of Denis Poisson's big mind process, and
I was curious
I talk
where
about
you got it. Yeah.
at the beginning of the video about about the what happened with that, and the reason why I was making a kind of an off-brand version. When I first did it, maybe 20 years ago, I guess, it was like a light bulb moment, you know, like a like an experience that you only really need to have once, and once you've had it, you kind of understand a lot more about how everything works, kind of thing. You don't need to stay in that state of transcendence, because that's what it is. I'm not sure whether to spoil the last step, because kind of like,
yeah, I didn't want to say too much either.
That's right, a little bit of the
experience it, yeah.
of the mechanics of this process is like not really knowing where you're going with it, but anyway, some people, and not everyone, by the way, but some people who follow the process all the way through properly and actually follow the steps the way they're supposed to follow them, have a like quite a spiritual experience of realizing that they are more than just themselves. Right. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably a reasonable way of putting it, and to realize that this is what you are all the time, even though all the time you only really identify with this little local self. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe if I come away from that experiment, just to leave its mystique, so that people can actually go ahead and do it, and go with maybe a metaphor of a dream, right? When you're having a dream and you're doing certain things, and there are other people in that dream, and you can interact with those other people, and they will say things to you, and they might be kind to you, or they might be act really violently towards you, or whatever it is. All of that is you, the dreamer, right? All of these characters, they haven't come from outside; they've come from inside you. They are aspects of you, and so and so I take that metaphor out into the to the waking world, let's say, and I propose that in fact we are all aspects of the dreamer, and therefore we are all one thing. We are all the same thing. We are, even though it seems on the day to day that we're separate entities. And this is true for non-incarnate entities. We are one. They are a part of us in the same way as we are a part of them. But
Yeah.
on the day to day, it seems like we are separate in the same way as it seems that you and I are separate. But
Mhm.
nevertheless, we're all one consciousness being pulled to particular poles, maybe to particular centers of attraction, centers of like receptors, receivers, but it's still that same
Yeah.
one consciousness that's being shared.
Mhm.
And as receivers, we build up identities for ourselves, don't we? And we say, okay, this is my identity. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is my profession. This is who I like. This is who I don't like. This is et cetera, et cetera. We build up these identities for ourselves, and sometimes those identities are strongly contended, like sometimes they're shattered,
Mhm.
and it's a very difficult experience. Um, Most people go through their lives believing that they are only this identity, right? They're nothing
Yeah.
more, nothing additional. Um,
Mhm.
and so the holy guardian angel, is it something separate from us? Yes, it is. It's something separate from our local identity,
Mm.
but it's not necessarily something separate from our self, our full self. And this is something that I really appreciate about many of the magic traditions that I've studied, is that they place the human not as something to be rejected in the same way as many of the esoteric forms of the world religions do. Most of the world religions, when you look at their esoteric cores, they say the body is bad, the material world is bad, and we need to transcend it. We need to leave samsara. We need to
Mhm.
escape the archons, and get back to the monad. We need to, etc. This is essentially what they're saying, right? Material bad, spiritual good. And actually,
Yeah.
most of the magical traditions that I've been studying over the past, maybe decade and a half, maybe a couple of decades now,
Mhm.
what they rather suggest is it's all it's all it's all essential. There can't be one without the other.
Mhm.
And as humans, our role, our place in the universe is at the nexus of all the realms. We have access to the spiritual realms, we have access
Mhm.
to the material realms, and we have access to the infernal realms if they are indeed separate from the heavenly realms. Right.
Yep.
And it's all our um, we're the bridge to it all, right? So yes, the gods and the, let's say, celestial entities have a say on what we do, but as magicians, we also have to say, that's great, but you don't know what it's like to have to pay a bill because you've never been incarnate. You don't know what it's
Mhm.
like to have a family with responsibilities. You don't know what it's like to have people who rely on you to go and visit them for Christmas, which means that you can't go to Tibet to meditate for 7 years.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's like to have a human life. So as much as I don't just appreciate, but actually follow what is being sent from the higher levels of the self, right? From the higher realms, from the gods. I also have a responsibility to say, can it be done another way? Because the way that you're suggesting, it's not going to work out, not practically, not in real terms. So let's find another way, right? So I also have, as a magician, I also have a responsibility, not just to push back, but to work together, right? To find solutions that are the right solutions for the whole system, not just for the higher self. Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. I mean, it's for me, it's kind of funny because when we get into these very deep conversations, I mean, you said it earlier, when sometimes when we describe the numinous, the words are failing us, and so my goal generally, whether with the book I wrote or when with these conversations, is it's kind of it's kind of to do the opposite, to bring it back a little to this game that's and I know for some people, life doesn't feel so much like a game, and I understand that, and I don't mean any disrespect at all.
Yeah, of course.
And I also know how it feels. That, well, if that's a game, that's a really fucking crappy game after all.
Right.
But anyways, so that's what interests me. That old Zen trope. Chop wood, carry water. You just come back and do the same that you did, but now it's kind of different. But anyways,
It's different.
So
Yes.
I love how you put it, because it's of course, any discussion like this will end on, at one point, well, it's all one anyways. So, but to me, that's kind of the boring part. I mean, I know. And I mean, I know that a lot of people, they have, and it's some of those people who haven't got there, they can do things that I will probably never be able to do. So it's not a judgment on anyone.
Sure.
But a lot of people, they haven't got there to the we're all one part,
Completely.
But
and that's okay.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of us, but I think more people have experienced that than we might think, because generally, this kind of experience can lead someone to not word very strong ideas, because we understand that everything's so nuanced and complex. So I guess, anyways, but listen, I kind of want to roll it back, and because we're getting to the end. I mean, for sure we could talk for hours, and I would love that.
Yes.
But I'd like to end on a kind of a lighter note, although it was I'm about to describe something that was very dark for me, but it was over 25 years ago, so I'm good. But okay, so I can't remember the title, but you can. I spent the whole day yesterday listening again to videos that you posted for research.
I'm sorry.
Listen, but as I said, like a lot of it was re-listening. So, man, it was
okay.
Don't worry about that. And there's one where you describe a very personal experience with. I'm not going to describe anything about it. aside from the fact that it's mind-blowing, it's a mind-blowing experience. I know that if I had that would have fucked me up for a while if that had happened to me. So again, I can't remember the title of the
think
video,
it's
but
Something Strange Happened to Me.
Okay,
Something
cool.
strange happened to me. Yeah.
It's gonna be, and I concur that it's pretty strange, and it's gonna be in the show notes for people who want to watch that. But it made me think, and I just want to put it out there, like very lightheartedly. But it made me think of a story that happened to me, which was not as well. Your story wasn't necessarily fun, but it was at the very least interesting. But to me, it was okay. So it was about I think I was around 19 or like 18, 19. And back then my parents had a little how do you call it? It's not a cottage, it's kind of a like a trailer, like in the woods, like on a place where like anyways, they spent pretty much their whole summers there, and they left me the key to their place, saying, well, you could come back once in a while, take the, so that it feels like there's a presence in the house, and so don't get robbed. And well, I realized later that they also left the fridge very full. So it was kind of a little sanctuary for me when life got tough. It was pretty dark back then. So one night, I'm extremely depressed. I'm not doing good, and I have $5. That's all I have left in my possession, and I think I'm gonna go to my parents. They have a big bath. I'm 6'2", so like a deep bath is very
nice.
It's yeah. So, and I had a dog. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a rare occurrence that you can submerge yourself.
Sure.
So I thought, I'm going to take my $5. I'm going to go to my parents' house. I'm going to take a bath. And then I'm going to go rent a movie with my $5, and I'm just going to relax. And that was very important to me to do that at that specific time. And also I had a dog, a big dog called, interestingly enough, it was called Shadow. Wasn't a name that I gave him, but so I get to my parents, get undressed, get into the tub, and my clothes, I left my clothes in the living room, and the dog wasn't just walking around. So I relax. I'm getting mentally ready to just to figure out what movie I'm gonna get or something. And then I come out of the bathroom, and I see something near my pants. That something was my wallet that was there. And outside the wallet was a $5 bill, completely destroyed by my dog.
Oh.
Like there were other things in that wallet. There were like an old library card that expired, like a whole bunch of.
Oh wow! Yeah.
The dog, Shadow, shall I say, who is a great dog, by the way, but took out my wallet from my pants. Took out that $5, especially on that day. Yeah, took out the $5 and just chewed it. Um, so somehow I kind of felt like it had that same feel of I didn't ask for anything though,
Yes.
contrary to what your story. But so just like I'm just curious, like what happened? What do you think happened, man? And I'll accept I have no idea, but I'm just curious. How can something like that happen? And I thought I'd ask a magician, because I've never figured it out, like why?
I have no idea. No idea. Um, if you had some kind of realization from this experience, then I'd be able to say, so that you could have this experience or this realization.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting an answer. Like,
oh, I can absolutely, but I mean, that doesn't seem like a coincidence, does it? Yeah, it doesn't, like, it seems so personal. Yeah,
exactly. So that's I kind of fell to my knees and was like, why? Like, I at first, like, I'm thinking, why is my dog possessed? That's what I thought. It can't be him, like he's not that bright, he doesn't know what a $5 bill is. It doesn't smell like dog food, or anything. So
funny, isn't it?
yeah,
I can imagine some answers that some people might give you, but no, it wouldn't be for me to explain this one to you. I think that this is for you to explain to yourself.
Yeah, I know. I just thought,
it's
like, maybe
fantastic story, though.
do demons possess dogs?
Do demons possess dogs? I'm sure that dogs get possessed by all kinds of entities in the same way as we do, and whether we ask for it or not. Just you're quite right. And maybe something was trying to catch your attention. It just seems to me that if it had been the right way to attract your attention, maybe they would have succeeded. And maybe they have, or maybe they will several decades later.
Yeah.
But yes, that does. I mean, it's a very good point, isn't it? Like, what's the limit? Like, what is the quantity of coincidence when it stops being a coincidence and seems to be something more than a coincidence? People are constantly, writing to me comments and, getting into my DMs and asking me, hey, I saw 3 planes in the sky today, and this morning when I woke up, it was 3:00. What does it mean? And I'm like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, get more sleep. That's what it means. What can I say to you? I mean, some people really, really want to find meaning where there is none. But then occasionally there'll be a story just like the one you told, where it just doesn't seem reasonable, right? It seems more reasonable for there to be an explanation than for it to just be coincidence, right? But yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Like, what is that quantity? What is that quantity? What is that? That barrier that makes something.
I kind of have my answers for that. Meaning, Well, that could be a very long
Oh,
discussion,
for
but
sure.
all this notion of synchronicity and all that, to
Mm.
me, it's a language, and sometimes there's a feel that kind of even departs from just coincidences, or anyways, that's another thing. But
100%.
yeah, I'm
100%.
sorry. I hope I didn't ruin the end of our, because
On
I
the
mean,
contrary, I love this idea. Like for example, my wife I was having a chat with my wife over breakfast this morning, and she said to me, "Can I ask you a personal question?" I'm like, "Yes, please." Like this doesn't sound like a usual conversation, so yeah, let's do it. And she goes, "The other day you said that you've been told under in no uncertain terms not to get rid of a particular book, right? So there's this book that's been on my shelves for maybe 2 years, and at the
mhm,
time I bought it, it was it was going to be the next big thing. I bought it, and people were really angry with the book at the time it came out for various reasons, right?
mhm,
They didn't get out of it what they were hoping to get out of it. And so
mhm,
I'll be honest with you, I didn't even bother to open it. Right, just been on my shelf. It's just been quite a nice looking book, so it's just stayed there just for show. Right? I don't have many books that have stayed on my shelves just for show. This one, for some reason, had stayed on my shelf just for show, and I was
mhm,
looking for some space on my shelves to fit some other books. And I've got a pile of books in the corridor that are for donation. Right, just because I get many books in regularly, and I have to
mhm,
let out the ones that I know that I'll never open again, right? So I have to make some space on the shelves. And I was looking for some space, and this one particular book, which will remain unnamed, just it was there, and I thought, you know what, it's time. I haven't heard anyone mention this book for the past 2 years. Um, I've got a negative impression from the bad reviews that it got at the time that it came out. I'm not going to make a review about it now. I'd have to actually get into it, read it. I know from those reviews that it's not good. At least I think I know from these reviews that it's not good.
mhm,
I'm not going to waste time on it. I'll just donate it. And that afternoon, on my Discord, suddenly everyone's talking about this one book that really has not been mentioned for 2 years, 2 years, right? And on the day that I decide to literally take it off the shelf and put it in the corridor, and it's there in the corridor, right? And
mhm.
I go onto the Foolish Fish Discord, and yeah, everyone's talking about it, and I'm like, I've heard it's not very good, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, are you kidding? No, 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 this is essential. I use it all the time." Blah blah blah. Okay, like anyone else feel differently? No, no, I love that book. It's the only book that does this, and the only book that does that, and so on. I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, if that's not a sign, what is, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, you know that this is a sign. You know that you're being told to do something in these circumstances, and in other
Mhm.
circumstances, you don't know. You just it feels like
Yeah.
there we go.
Oh,
No, it's, it,
okay.
was, it was a good one to
Uh,
finish. I'm so sorry I can't give you a definitive answer on what was happening with that $5
no, no, no,
bill.
no. I wasn't expecting that. I mean,
Yeah,
because to me, like, I mean, we went so deep on so much stuff, and to me,
I know, I know.
it's part of the. It's. I don't mind seeing part of this all this mysticism and magic and stuff like that as a bit of entertainment too. I mean, it can be fun, like
It
one
can
doesn't
be.
preclude the other,
It
like
should
just go
be.
towards what
Yes.
feels right. And I think as much as I love getting into that, like the deepest of experiences, I mean, I love a fun ghost story as much as
Yes,
anyone else,
yes, yes,
and
yes.
to me that's it
For
kind of
sure.
falls into that category. So I wasn't looking for you know
Nice, nice, very
All
nice.
right. Wow, like all the conversations just keep getting longer every time.
Sure.
I love it so much. I'm so happy that you accepted this invitation.
It's
I've
been a
been
tremendous amount of fun and a real pleasure. Thank you, Dominic, for having me on the show.
I really feel honored. I mean, it's great. Thank you.
I wish you the very, very best of luck going forward with it. I'm sure you'll do very well.
I hope so. I mean, yeah. I'm not going to do the same thing that I did with Mr. Bachelor last time. And I'm not going to forget to ask you, where can people find you, Mr. Foolish Fish?
Right. Well, I'm on YouTube. That's my home, really. That's where you'll be able to find all my videos. I do book reviews. I do book overviews. I receive recently published books, and I do 2-minute videos where I show you what you'll be getting if you decided to buy it online, which is what most people unfortunately have to do. You know, most people don't have lovely esoteric bookshops on their doorstep, so they do buy them online. So, and sometimes they'd like to see what the physical thing actually looks like, what the table of contents is, and so on. Sometimes I do full reviews, and every other Saturday, or as close to every other Saturday as possible, I do a thought piece, right, where I just talk about a concept that I've been thinking about this fortnight. Members get to see that. Members from Patreon, so the Foolish Fish Patreon, get to see that 1 week before everyone else, without any of the extra visuals. Like, I like to add like GIFs or GIFs, depending on how people pronounce that, and and memes, and just visuals and and B-roll and so on and so forth, to keep things entertaining. But some people don't like that, and they prefer just me talking to the screen. And members get that, as I say, 1 week before the fully edited video goes out to the public. What else? I do one-to-one conversations, one-to-one consultations. I do tarot readings, and actually, many people just call me. Yeah, just for a quick tarot reading, but what they really want is to talk about their practice and where they can take it next, or maybe they're just getting started and they want some recommendations on which direction to go given their own background. And as I say, I've read a few books on the topic, and I can give like very personalized recommendations that are going to be right for that specific individual. So that's one of the things that I'm really enjoying doing at the moment. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well, but I have to say I'm not very good at uploading on Instagram, other than to say there's a promotion on or whatever. I wish I could be a little bit more active on Instagram. On at least on Facebook, I let people who are following me on Facebook know whenever there's a new video coming out, because the YouTube algorithm can be a little bit weird like that. If you subscribe to a channel nowadays, there's no guarantee you're going to see any more of their videos, but just it'll be giving YouTube an idea that you like videos maybe like this at some point. The bell button is essential nowadays. And then what? And my book is out, of course. So this is the transcript.
That's something we didn't get into, unfortunately.
Yeah, we didn't. But that's all right. This is the second edition in green, which is, as you can see, it's just really, really lovely.
It's gorgeous,
and it's transcripts of some of my most essential Esoteric Saturday videos. And
cool.
Just reach down over here. There's a paperback version, which is also on sale at the moment, or not on sale, but available to purchase, right? So being sold.
Great.
Right? There we go. Yeah, it's kind of a nice like nice quality paperback, right? Yeah, anyway, quite cool. From Black Letter Press. And that's that's
it.
I think that's an overview. Yeah.
That's that's a lot to a lot to keep you enough to keep you busy.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Yeah.
That's perfect. So, well, thanks again. Speaking of, we were talking about signs and synchronicities and stuff. I don't have any tea left. So that's the sign. We have to finish.
It's a sign. It's a sign right there. Yes.
Love it.
Dominic, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much again for having me on the show. It's been really lovely.
So you've made it to the end of this Hopscotch Chronicles podcast episode, and I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed doing it. And I thank you so much for your attention, and I hope you're benefiting in a way or another from this conversation. So if you'd like to follow my work, whether on this podcast or my personal work, you can go to Twitter or X and follow me at Domi_Valet, DOMI_Valet. Same username for Instagram if you prefer that platform. You can also go to the official website for the podcast, which is hopscotchchronicles.com. And if you'd like to support the podcast as well as my personal work, you can do so by subscribing to my Patreon. The address is patreon.com/Dominic Valet, DOMINIC Valet, VALLEE. There you'll find video and audio versions of the episodes without any commercials, as well as special episodes on every Sunday where I take my Sunday afternoon tea with you guys. All right, thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep reaching for the light.